everyone, welcome back. In this video we'll be talking about Azure Firewall, and we'll be also looking into how to connect a routing table to the firewall, as well as we'll be talking about different rules, for example NAT, network and application rules inside the firewall. So let's go ahead and start. So initially you have to go to the firewall group which I have created recently. So to create that you can just click create, and here just add the name. So you can just add sample, and you can just go ahead, you can just review and create it. If you want to add tags you can, but in this case I just ignored it, and it's ACUS. So whenever you're creating any virtual networks or anything other services, make sure that you also use ACUS inside this particular resource group. So that is how I created this one. So this is the firewall group that I have created, so which belongs to ACUS. So click that. So these are the different resources that I have created. So just to save the time, I have already created it. Let me show you how this is done. So initially I have created my virtual network. So to create that, you can click create inside that resource group, and here search for virtual network. So you can see we have got the virtual network. Click that, and you can read about it, what exactly it does, and just click create. So you can see in this resource group, sometimes the default resource group will be applicable, but make sure that you use the group that you have created. So in this case I'll be using the firewall group, and coming to network name, I'll be using VNet firewall. So it's East US, sometimes it will be East US 2. So whenever you create it, it will be difficult to associate this particular network to the firewall or routing tables. So make sure that all the resources inside this should be East US. So once you create it, you can just review and create it. So everything will be using by default, all the default, you see the network IP address and so on. The tags we can ignore it. If you want, you can keep that. So in this case I'll just ignore it and create. So I have created my virtual network. So it's done. Once my virtual network is done, I'll be creating my VM. In this case, this is the virtual machine I have created. So if you see this, these are all created by default. So whenever I create my virtual machine, where is it? There you go. So to create a virtual machine, you can just click create, and similarly, let's click virtual machine and click create. So you see, so you can see here, right, the region is East US 2. So make sure that you change it to East US. So based on the region that you have selected in that resource group. So I'll be using the East US, and let's say it's VM1. And coming to the standard, I'll be using in this case I think I used Windows Server 2019 Data Center, and I've used this one. Okay. And make sure that you use your username and password. So once you use this, you will be able to log into this virtual machine using these credentials. So don't forget that. And everything is same, and everything will be created by default. So the networking and everything. So you can see here, right, the public IP is created by on its own. So these are a few default settings that will be done. So you just need to fill the basics section and just review and create it. So I have done those two. So once I've created my virtual network, and inside that I have created a virtual machine. So let's go back, and when you create your virtual network, where is it, virtual network, if you see the subnets, you'll be finding only one, which is the default. So make sure that you add the other subnet, which is Azure Firewall subnet. So to create this, you can just click subnet and add the name, and just save it. So since it's already there, it will be showing error. So just that is how you will be adding the subnet. To use the firewall, you have to have the subnet. So let's go back here, and so once this setting is done, the next thing is you have to create a firewall. So let's create a firewall. So for that, similarly, we'll be searching for firewall, and we have got the firewall, and click create, So subscription 1, and let's say it's FW1. You can see region is East US 2. Make sure that you change it to East US. So East US, and so you have different section. So I'll be selecting the standard one. So click the standard, and under firewall management, you can see you have two different options. The first one is use a firewall policy to manage the firewall, and the other one is use firewall rules classic to manage this firewall. So in this case, I'll be using the second one. So if we talk about the difference between these two, so using the firewall rules classic is to manage this firewall is a traditional approach to managing a firewall where rules are created and configured manually. So this involves specifying the source and destination IP address, ports and protocols, and action to be taken, which is allow or block for each individual rule. So it can be time consuming to manage and maintain these rules, especially when there is a large and complex environments. On the other hand, if we talk about use a firewall policy, it's a newer approach to managing a firewall that allows you to create and manage rules using higher level of policies rather than individual rules. So a policy is a collection of rules that are grouped together based on the common purpose, such as allowing access to the particular application or the service. So this approach can be more efficient and easier to manage, especially to a larger and complex environments. So this is the basic difference between these two. If we talk about in simple terms, using firewall rules classic is to manage this firewall is a manual approach to managing the firewall, while using the firewall policy is an automated and streamlined approach to use these policies. So that is the basic difference between these two. And coming to choosing your virtual network, so I'll be using the one which we have just created. So it will be use existing one, and you can see here VM VNet. So for instance, if you forgot to change the destination, like for example, if you see it was East US 2. So if you have not observed it and you just create it, you will be not able to find this one. So since it's related to East US, so I'll be using this virtual network, and coming to the public IP, I'll be adding a new one. So in this case, I'll just add firewall IP and just click OK. So once it is done, you can just review and create it. If you want to add tags, you can, but I just ignored it. So this is how we will be creating a firewall. So once the firewall is created, you will be able to see the firewall, right? And once it will take some time to create that firewall. So meantime, you can create a route table. So you can just click and route table. So click the route table and click create. So in this case, it will be East US. So if you observe, I'm using the same region in all those services. So firewall and the routing table, you can just keep it as RT1, and you can review and create it. So once this is done, if I go back, firewall group, so this is the routing table that has been created. So click that, and initially this there will be nothing here, so we have to go to the routes, and this is the route that I have added. Okay, so if you click add here, you can see route. So you can just add RT2, and coming to the address prefix destination, click IP address and use the 024. So once so obviously it is added, so that's the reason it's showing me error. And the next hop will be a virtual appliance, and the next hop will be the private IP of my firewall. So that is how you will be added. So whenever you try to access some other IP addresses which were not mentioned, so it will be going to this default IP, and to reach this you have to go to firewall. So here you have to mention the firewall IP. So if you see here, this is my private IP of my firewall. So to reach this, it will be going through my firewall. So if I go here So I'll be using two tabs just to, okay, resource group, firewall group, and firewall layer that we have created, and you can see the private IP here. So this is the IP that we have created. So you can just add that and you can just click save. So it will be done. So we have added one route, and now like we have not associated this route table to any of our virtual machine, right? So we have to associate this particular route table to our virtual machine. So whenever we are trying to access anything from our virtual machine, it will be redirecting to this route table, and this route table to reach this particular address, it will be going to the firewall. So this is how it is connected. So if I go to the subnets, you can see right now it has been associated to VNet. So to associate, you just need to click associate and add it. So VNet, and here it will be the default one which we have already added. So make sure you do this two steps. The first one is adding the route, and the next one is associating your VNet to this particular routing table. So once this is done, we can go to our firewall. So here under firewall, you can see there is under settings the rules classic, so which we have talked just a few minutes ago. So we'll be clicking this rules classic, and we have three different rules: NAT rule collection, network rule collection, and application rule collection. So if we talk about the first one, which is NAT rule collection, so NAT rules are used to translate IP addresses between networks. So NAT allows devices on the private network to communicate with the devices on the public network, such as internet. So NAT rules map private IP address to public addresses so that the traffic can flow between the two networks. So NAT rules are typically used to improve security by hiding the private network's IP address from the public network. So that is the basic definition of NAT rule collection. So you can just add NAT rule, and here you can just give the name. So in this case I have used or you can just give it as NAT1. And coming to the priority, so you can see the priority is 300. So if we give it as 200, this will be the top priority. So however, since we are writing only one rule, I have used 300. So obviously we'll be getting error since there is already a priority 300. And here we have to add the rules. So in this case it will be related to the RDP. So I'll be using RDP, and coming to the protocol, it will be the TCP, IP address, and coming to the source, I'll be using the asterisk, which is any any source. So coming to the destination, it will be my public IP of my Azure Firewall. So if I go back here, so if I click the firewall, where is my IP? So you can see here public IP, so click that, and this is our IP. So this is what we have to paste here. So let me paste that. Okay. So I have pasted that, and coming to the port, it will be 3389 since it's related to RDP. To the translated address, it will be the private IP of the virtual machine. So to see that, you can just go to our resource group, and if we click where is our virtual machine, there you go. So this is our private IP of our virtual machine, so which is 10.0.0.4. So we'll be adding that here. And the next one will be the port. So it's done. So this is how you have to create it. So once you just add it, so this is how you can see. So this is the rule that we have created. So once the NAT rule is completed, the next stage is we'll be using network rule collection. So for that, you can see here we already created it. So what is network rule collection? So network rules are used to manage traffic based on the network criteria such as IP address, ports, protocols, and interface. So network rules determine what traffic is allowed or denied based on the source and destination address, ports as well as protocols. So network rules are typically used to control traffic flow within a network, between networks, or between the specific devices. So we'll be adding the rule here. So for that, you can just click, And here let's add as network rule 1, in which priority I have used same 300. You can just use any number that you want. So once you use that, so next action will be allowed, and coming to the rules, it will be the DNS, UDP, and IP address. Coming to the source, it will be the default subnet of our virtual network. So that will be, so if you go back here, if I go back, where is virtual network? So here if you go to the subnets, so this is the IPv4 CIDR notation that you have to use. So 10.0.0, so that is what we have to use, 0.0.0/24. So once the source is done, the next one is the destination IP address, which we'll be using 8.8.8.8, 8.8.8, sorry, 4.4. So what are these addresses? So basically these two IP addresses are used for Google public DNS, which is domain name system. So DNS is a service that translates the domain name, such as, for example, let's say Microsoft.com. So it will be converting it to an IP address so that the computers can understand that language. So that is what that is the reason why we have used these two IP addresses. So coming to next, it will be 53, which we have which is related to the DNS. So once this is done, you can just add it. So since it's already there, that's the reason we are getting error. So if you see, if we change that, we are not getting. So we have done with network rule, and you can see this one. So this is the rule that we have added. So once the network rule is completed, the next one is we'll be using the application rule collection. So click that. So what is application rule collection? So it is used to manage traffic based on the application level criteria, such as URLs, domains, and file types. So application rules determine what traffic is allowed or denied based on the type of application or service that is being accessed. So application rules are typically used to control access to specific applications or services, such as email messaging or social media. So let's add our application rule. So you can just use application 1, and the priority, similarly I have used 300 here. So the action will be allow, and the next one is coming to here, we'll be using Microsoft. So let's say if you want to add Microsoft, so I'll be using Microsoft, and the IP address, and here it will be our subnet default, so which is 10 point that we have used before /24. And the protocols that we'll be using is HTTP as well as HTTPS. So we can just add HTTP, and the target fully qualified domain name, which will be www.microsoft.com. So you can just add this way, or you can add any other addresses that you want. So that is how you'll be adding these 3 different rules in this firewall. And you can also add if you go to the service, let me go back. If you go to our virtual machine, where is it? Virtual machine, and if you go to our interface, so you can add your DNS services as well. So you can click custom, and you can add the DNSs, the numbers that we have used, which is 8.8.8.8 and 8.8.4.4. You can just inherit from the application. So once this is done, you can test your DNS whether it's working or not. So you can access your virtual machine. So to access your virtual machine, you can just go to your virtual machine and click connect RDP. So here there will be a file which will be downloaded, and you have to use your username and password. So once you use your username and password correctly, it will be redirecting to your virtual machine. So in this case, this is my virtual machine, and I have tested my whether my DNS is working properly or not, and it's working good. So this is how you can perform your firewall and add the rules accordingly. So yeah, I hope you guys understood the concept of today's video. If you have liked the video, please click the like button below, and if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel, and please share the video. Thanks everyone.